video. We appreciate your attendance this evening. This time, we go to our invocation of pledge of allegiance, and I see Mr. Grace is not here. So, Dr. Leffler, would you please kind of do that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dear God, thank you for letting us meet today in our free country and express what we think and do the best we can for our students, our teachers, and our communities. Thank you for all you do for us, and we appreciate it. We do not give you enough thanks. I sincerely pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I'm going to entertain a motion that the board go into closed session for personnel matters, student matters, and attorney-client privilege under the appropriate North Carolina general statutes. I have a motion. Have a motion by Ms. Gibbs. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Watson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any opposed, opposed? Okay, I'll call us back into open session, we'll keep our agenda items, and so next on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda from the March 2nd regular meeting. Is there any? Sorry, I left my knowledge, we're back. Is there any discussion or some comments about those minutes? If not, hearing none, those will stand approved as presented. All right,
Chairman James,
yes, we need to make
if
a,
I can, I'd like to make a recommendation.
Mhm.
Under section 11, auxiliary services, I would also like to add consideration for the contract for our auditors,
big part of contract for,
for our auditors, our auditing regional, yes, sir.
all right, if there are no objections from the board, we will add that under section 11 of the agenda. Do we want to take that? Okay. Committee reports, instructional program, Ms. Gibson.
We did meet,
Speak.
we met, on March the 9th. And, it was a very informative meeting, with Dr. Blake Lewis. And I know that you have copies of these minutes in your packet. Dr. Blake Lewis, went over with us about the new social studies standards. The one thing that stands out to me was that the standards are set by DPI and they have to be implemented, but the curriculum is formatted and set by LEA. And I know that, I believe that Dr. Amy Blake Lewis, our teachers and others are working in this area right now. Also, she focused on bridging the gap, which is a timeline of expectations, and really it's supporting the learning process rather than just the teaching. And then content enhancement routines, this really went along with the support with Tier 1 and MTSS. And then the next part that Dr. Amy Blake Lewis presented to us was with instructional resources for our board to continue to discuss tonight, and we are going to be bringing this out of our committee before the board to vote on. But I'm going to ask Dr. Amy Blake Lewis if she will present this to the board so that you have an understanding of how these costs, what these costs are going to be used for.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. The one item that Ms. Gibson is referencing that I brought specifically was a new purchase of a resource known as Boardworks. We did do a preview of this with a focus group of teachers to get their input on this resource. Basically, Boardworks is a one-time purchase of a resource that has interactive PowerPoint slides that teachers can pull from to create their lessons. It interfaces seamlessly with Canvas as well. And I know one of the things that when I came to Stanley County in June that this board really focused heavily on was resources that did not involve an annual subscription. And so this is not an annual subscription. Once this purchase is made, there is a 10% fee that will. I don't know what's going on. I'll put that to the excited right now. I'll talk a little louder. There's a 10% fee that serves to maintain those slides and make sure that they are kept operational, that hyperlinks are active, and it also serves to update the library of slides. So currently, Boardworks has over 25,000 interactive slides that cross different content areas. And so the focus group of teachers were very complimentary of this product. And in fact, one teacher from South Stanley High School said that it would be a gross disservice if we didn't make a purchase of this resource. So they were incredibly complimentary of it. So what's in your packet are two quotes. The first one represents the one-time purchase amount, which is at $79,070. And then the second quote would include for you, if we wanted to go ahead and roll in 3 years of that annual tech fee to support it, if we wanted to go ahead and make that purchase so that those tech fees were paid in advance for the next 3 years, and that amount totals $102,791. So keep in mind that tech fee simply serves to maintain the hyperlinks, the working ability of those interactive slides, and to continually add to the library. Yes, sir.
So is it just the learning on the computer? Is that what it is?
No, sir, this is not. This is actually not something that the students log into and do. This is something for teachers to use as a teaching resource. So they would be able to pull these slides into their lesson, their instruction during the class period, and use it to actively provide instruction to the students with activities that are engaging to them. It would be teacher facilitated with these slides, these interactive slides.
So they don't do it on the screen?
It's kind of like a pre-made PowerPoint that the teacher uses for instruction, but it's very interactive, and there's a lot of different things embedded in it. So it's really a good resource. It gives the teacher material, that help present and to help assess the kids.
And if I can add, Dr. Lerica, being a former teacher, and I'm sure that Mr. Sorensen could hopefully back me up here, but when Dr. Amy Wade Lewis presented this, I was like, wow, here are resources that instead of my spending hours upon hours of my time trying to find whatever it is on that topic that I am teaching, I have all of this access right available to me, that I can develop, I can use it as it is. I would think also that you could use it in any way as a teacher, add to, take from, whatever, but I think about the hours upon hours that a teacher is searching for instructional, materials, no matter what they're teaching, and this. How many slides did you say?
There's 25,000 in the library right now, but they estimate that they add about another 5,000 a year.
Right. I mean, this is, to me, just so invaluable for teachers.
I have a quick question here.
Sure.
Maybe not a quick question. There was a program last year, and I know that some of the curriculum coaches were working on it where you would do assessments. One of the complaints was that there were these incredible resources that they had access to. They were expensive though, but it was very difficult to draw a correlation between the assessments and the resources, right? So teachers had to spend a lot of time doing this. I'm not going there. I think this is great. This is excellent. But it says that this is aligned with state standards. Is there an assessment that the teachers could use that point down to the right slides?
So this is not an assessment tool. This is truly a teaching tool.
Oh,
So the teacher could create assessments based on this content, but these are content-driven slides. They are true resources for teachers to use. So to Ms. Gibson's point,
Right.
this would be a valuable tool in saving teachers countless hours of searching the internet to find a link to a video or to find maps that would connect with social studies. So these are content slides that teachers could use in instruction.
Okay, so two things quick. So all teachers have access to this as a site license for this school system.
Yes, it is.
And then is there an administrative dashboard that you can go back and your teacher can go back and monitor
We can
and
log in and
usage?
take a look and see who's using it.
who's using it?
Sure.
Cool, that'd be great.
So this is an item that would need action, so Ms. Gibson.
Okay, and to add to that, I'm assuming that maybe you, others, our curriculum coaches, whatever, that they're like having, I don't know if you say training or whatever, but this is being presented so that teachers and maybe even in their PLCs, they're able to utilize looking at this in their areas.
Yes, ma'am, and so the plan is, as we go through the summer and we start working on those content enhancement routines and building out those lesson plans for the coming school year, these will be referenced in our pacing guides as resources to connect when they teach a particular topic. So again, saving the teacher some time and knowing that it's a high quality, high engaging resource for teachers to use with their students.
So Chairman Chance, we're bringing this before the board, we're bringing it out in committee.
As this comes out of committee, I don't think second, is there any discussion on the matter?
Yeah, I've got one more question.
Sure.
What is this I-ready for elementary reading and math? Is that something we're using now, or is that something new?
No, that is something that we have been using for the past year. It was an annual subscription that we utilized, one of the first round of CARES for COVID Relief Act funds to purchase, and that purchase was made before I arrived in the district. But we have had great success with it with our K-5 population this year. They have used it regularly. Our middle schools have reported that they're not using it as frequently. I don't know that they have responded to it as well. So some of the discussion that we had was around whether or not to continue that purchase. So that is still a decision that we're in the process of making as we talk with our middle school and elementary principals if we want to renew that resource for a coming year.
What is the content of that? I mean, what?
Sure, it is an assessment tool. It starts with a diagnostic, so it is a computer-based assessment. The students log in, the computer system starts presenting questions and scenarios to students, and as they respond, it will adjust in difficulty. So if they're getting questions correct, it increases the difficulty. When they start getting questions incorrect, it drops the difficulty level, and then it will give a final report when the student has maxed out at a certain number wrong or a certain number correct in a string of questions, and it will generate an approximate level that that student is working on, and then it will go ahead and prescribe additional activities for that student to do to address areas of need. So it gives the teachers an idea of where the student is in real time, and then the system actually assigns different activities to them. So again, it saves the teacher a lot of time in terms of determining what type of intervention that the student might need or areas where they may need additional work and support.
So how much of this extra activity actually occurs in the classroom? I mean, as a teacher, if everybody has one of these assessments, how many things will it spit out that you need to do differently for this student?
Well, the system will identify different skill gaps, and it is reading and math based. And so students do have time built into their schedule every day. Most teachers use it between 20 and 30 minutes a day. And so the students can use that as a station rotation when the teacher is doing small groups. It's not necessarily something that the teacher assigns as like a homework assignment, but it is kind of built into the day, and a lot of teachers choose to use it on those remote Fridays to give students some extra reinforcement of some skills.
So how successful is it?
At the elementary level, like I said, we have seen growth among our students and a high usage among our elementary. At the middle school level, the last usage report that I pulled, we were showing about a 50% usage of it in the middle school. So that is why the discussion came into the instructional committee, because I wanted them to know this is the price point and this is how it's being used.
So why are they not using it in the middle school?
I wish I could answer that question. Because it is built into their schedule every day. So we're investigating that to see if we can get to the bottom of that.
Left just as an aside to that, having spoken to a number of teachers at the middle school level about iReady, a lot of them just feel like it doesn't adequately, as the program currently is written, doesn't adequately meet the needs of a lot of their students from the standpoint of what it provides. I don't know more than that, I'm afraid. So,
And it's a decision that we'll need to make before August, because I think that contract renews in August. So.
and as I believe I recall, Mr. W, it's a rather expensive contract too, is it not? I don't expect you to give me
I know that-
a price, but
I know that we added that portion, wasn't that portion we added, already was the middle school portion this year?
Yes,
It was added and we took it out of care, it seems like 90,000, seems
for the middle school.
around, the
it
middle
was.
school segment was what was added on.
okay.
The total budget on it was $265,130 for a year, but about 90,000 of that was just middle school specific.
So if we go with this new one, that will replace iReady.
It does not replace iReady. This is not a diagnostic tool. iReady is an assessment tool. So as Mr. Graves was asking about assessments, it is an assessment tool. Boardworks is just a basic teacher resource that teachers would have valuable information that they can pull into their lectures, into their PowerPoints, into activities for students. It's a resource, not an assessment.
So does this money have to be paid upfront?
For Boardworks,
Uh-huh.
we were going to allocate some of our ESSER 2 or 3 funding to make that purchase.
So Dr. Lewis, I would just like to, like with COVID, and maybe where our kids are, I know Dr. Lewis talked about this many times. And I know our teachers are going to be working with trying to find, where our students are at as they enter into their classroom next year, and they're probably going to all be on so many different levels of whether it's math, reading. I'm just wondering if iReady would be a really good tool to have for next year when we're after this COVID and we really need a lot of that diagnostic and we need those kids working on these math problems and reading. That's just what I want to do.
Yeah, if we don't use iReady, we'll have to use something, because we're gonna need a screener, first of all, and iReady is our screener. We have to have that in the study, we don't have an option. We have to have some type of screener. And then we are gonna need, like you said, we're gonna need diagnostics, something diagnostic to be able to tell where our kids are. So if it's not iReady, it'll have to be something, we're always open to assessing and looking at different, types of screeners. I know the Chief 3000 has one, there's several out there that I'm familiar with, that I've used in past experiences. So if it comes up that, the teachers don't like iReady, we can always look at some other options. But we will have to have something close to it, and they are not cheap by any means.
Right.
Okay, so from the standpoint of your committee, Ms. Gibson, are you recommending that we purchase this at the $102,791 level? Okay.
Yes.
Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Next is facilities, Mr. Graves.
I just had one quick question. I understand that there was at East Albemarle, a matter with the roof, repair. Is that still underway? You don't have to, you can come up if you want to.
No, we have prepared that.
Oh, it's all set?
Yeah, it's been repaired. We may have to do a little bit more work with the main repairs been made.
Okay, it was just something that had come up and I just wanted to quickly ask him, so that's good. No further.
Okay, finance, Mr. Sorensen. Nothing to report. Okay, personnel, Ms. Watson.
No report.
Policy, Ms. Poppins.
You guys will be reminding me about a lot of policy again. The policies for final approval are policy 1610, 2127, 4120, 4270, 7240, 3420, 4152, and 2302, 5050. Those all are for final approval.
These were policies that have been tabled for 30 days,
Yes.
and this time I'll entertain a motion that these policies be approved.
Consent.
A motion, second, any discussion? Sorry. Good,
Yeah, thanks.
And then,
sorry,
oh, yeah, you're good.
sorry, I didn't understand. Second? Okay, okay. All right, then, in that case, I'll, call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. These policies are implemented.
Okay, and then we have, a set of policies that are gonna be tabled for 30 days. And that's policy 8035, 4300, 4301, 4302, 4302 -R, 4303, 3470, 3470, 4307, 4310, 3225, 4316, 4318, 4320, 4325, 3621, 4328, 4330, 4333, and 4335.
Still have a committee, I really don't need a second on this. These are policies that are being tabled for 30 days, correct?
Yes.
They'll be tabled and voted on at our next meeting.
Chairman Chance, I have a quick question. If we
Yes.
have any questions about these policies, would we bring those to a committee meeting
Yes,
for the next meeting?
yes.
Okay, thanks.
And then we have a few that are to be rescinded also.
Okay.
Policy 1070, 4085, 4500, 5126.
These were rescinded.
Yes.
They're gonna be deleted because there was a duplicate policies, the policies are no longer.
Okay, gotcha, all right, understand. So no action will be taken on those, I'm saying, correct?
No action, they will be tabled until the next meeting.
And that's the end of,
Okay. Legislative resource, Dr. Dennis or Ms. Gibson?
No.
Okay, no. All right, next is class size legislation update, Dr. Dennis.
This is nothing new, I just want to remind you, beginning next year, this is the last year of the phase-in of the class size reduction for K through 3. It will be the year with the lowest class numbers in each class. Beginning next year, the class size for kindergarten is 18, and the average for the county cannot exceed 21. For first grade is 16, average cannot exceed 19, and for second and third grade, it's 17, and we cannot exceed 20 as an average. Now, this is an unfunded mandate, so when they decided to lower the class size, what usually happens is we have to take teachers from other classes in the class in Florida to be able to, get within these numbers right here. Now, I say that for a couple of reasons. I know Mr. Bowers showed you a facilities report earlier on how our schools are full. Now, can we fit more kids in schools? Yeah, we can. I can't under these numbers because I can only fit so many in the classroom, and then of course I start running out of classrooms. And so that just needs to be, I just want to address it today to make sure it's on everyone's radar, that again, it's an unfunded mandate. We are restricted to the size of our schools, how many classrooms we have, and how many kids we can have in K through 3. So when we go forward making decisions on personnel, when we go forward making decisions on class sizes, when we go forward making decisions on transfers, all of this has to be taken into account. For instance, I've got a list right here of schools and classes that right now will not meet this mandate. We have 32 at this juncture that will not, individual, I guess we'll call it homeroom, that individual class that your student will go to that will not meet these requirements. And And looking at such, it is, and I'll be glad to share this later, I just got this recently, or I can report out now, but we have several schools, especially in the west end of the county, that does seem to be affected. It's not the only schools, but we're looking at schools, there's one on the south side, we're looking at Aquadale, there's Southern Central, quite a few at Locust, quite a few. Some at Dillonport, Norwood's another one. Norwood, remember, was we had to get a waiver for the classroom size this past year. If we get hit with that class with a waiver again, we get in trouble. And it's a funding loss. So we really got to look at our transfers to some of these schools, especially K-3, because if we let the kids go over and they exceed class size, one of two things have to happen. Either I have to tell the kid to go back to his other school, the one they're supposed to go to in the middle of the school year, or I've got to pay, even for a beginning teacher, $55,000, $60,000 to be able to split that class, or I can do combo classes. That's what you're going to look at. So we got to be really diligent when we start to look at our placement of our kids and our placement of our teachers, because these numbers, even though they may seem insignificant, maybe only one or two off from last year, it's going to make a big difference. It just really is, because we were so close to some of these schools this past fall. Any questions on that?
So the crisis is basically K-5, especially K-3 kids.
It's all,
It's because of unfunded mandate.
yes, sir. It's an unfunded mandate. It's our K-3. And what happens, and that's a great question, and I'm going to learn too. What can happen is to keep, and I'm just going to give you a scenario that I went through in another district I worked in, but to keep the K-3 class sizes down, I had to take teachers from the 4th and 5th grade, and I had 4th and 5th grade classes, 30 kids in elementary school. I mean, that was the only way to do it. And then I had to look at my school, and this particular school, like the report that Mr. Bowers sent, we didn't have any extra room unless we were about trailers. So it's not like we even had classrooms to spread out if we wanted to. So we really had to kind of adjust within the school, and every little nook and cranny in the school. Thank you.
Great.
I'm sure I'm gonna have more time to talk about this, but first, this should come as zero surprise to anybody in this room. Zero surprise. This has been an issue for a number of years while we've had people out talking about how we've got too many schools. At the same time, other people were arguing that we did not have enough classrooms, particularly because of this mandate that came down from the state. I believe was actually pushed out a little bit. Wasn't there some forgiveness?
You're right, there was some initial forgiveness, and then what they did was they set the timeline back some, and then they added some of these waivers. But yeah, so again, it was pushed out.
And the situation is, it's not only an issue around teachers, which of course the state isn't fully funding. The second issue is around that, and then I'll just stop here for now, but it's the fact that we're going to have to turn these AMP classrooms, art, music, these multi-purpose classrooms into actual classrooms. And the reason why I'm glad this has come up now is because I checked yesterday evening, there were 2 homes for sale in Albemarle on Zillow and Realtor.com. 2 homes for sale. Right now, there's less than 1 million homes on the market in the United States. You need to have 6 million homes, 6 million new homes for regular growth, to support regular growth. And we were at 4 million just a couple months ago. So the amount of homes available for people to purchase is declining. Try and get a home built, you're gonna wait in line for at least a year and 18 months to try to even get a new home start. And we've got hundreds of homes coming from the western end of Stanley County. So we are going to have to deal with this problem. We're gonna have to look at districting just as an academic exercise to see how that can impact us, and that ties right into transportation as well. If we don't start looking at it now, we are going to get caught in a very bad position. And like our superintendent just said, it's not like there are penalties, they're funny penalties. So either way, we either spend the money to help the students, accommodate the students, or we just send it back to the state in penalties and fines, which is ridiculous. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Any other comments? Dr. Dennis, I think you're still up.
All right, one last thing I just want to make you aware of, and many some action on this, is that was brought to my attention the curriculum, that when it comes to testing, we may have some difficulties with testing in our middle schools just based on how everything's set up. Especially some of ours that are a little, because we have brought our 5th grade up, which in and itself, adds another layer. So the solution from curriculum and testing was to bring our kids back, possibly bring our kids back for the last 2 weeks, which is essentially the last 8 days of school, and bring them back on plan A so that they can test entire classes. And what that would do, a couple things. First of all, is we would be able to, test the entire classes. If I have to break them up in half, it's going to take me twice as long to test everybody. So by testing the entire classes, I can test it quicker. I can also put together my other classes, like I would say the students who need certain, extended time and things like that. We'd be able to combine those classes. And we did a walkthrough of West Family Middle School the other day, which is going to be the toughest one. We looked at the outside units, the trailers, if you want to call them that, learning village. And we looked at the different spaces within the school. And, it's going to be tight, but we can make it work. And we're going to look at North Stanley Middle School shortly. But what I'm going to need is, if that's the most effective way to test our kids, then I'm going to need for the board to approve me to apply for Plan A for 6 through 8 only before the next board meeting, once we get everything down. But it would
Do that now, tonight.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
It's going to take more action. We need a motion and a second to get it on the floor for discussion.
So the motion would be to authorize the superintendent
authorize, go ahead.
to apply for Plan A for grades 6 through 8 for the purposes of testing.
For the testing window.
For the testing. Okay, so I make a motion, we authorize the superintendent to apply for Plan A for grades 6 through 8 for the purposes of the testing window, or for the duration of the testing window.
Second on Mr. Gray, motion on Mr. Gray and second on Mr. Sorensen. Now we get discussion.
I just had a couple of questions. First of all, my first question is, as it stands now, I know we have bandwidth problems and issues. If we have all those kids back on the road, are we going to be able to accommodate that?
That's a good question. So before I do that, what we're going to do is we've already looked at the bandwidth issues. I've been talking to Sean, and we've looked through that. I think we've got a lot of them solved, but what we're going to do is we're going to take all the 5th graders each of the school and have them take the tutorial, which will be the same as what it would look like on a testing day with an entire grade level hitting. And so if you can handle that, then it can handle any of the testing we're going to throw at it. The only thing is, I cannot promise you that when we start testing, the servers on the state end don't have an issue. So you could hear, I couldn't get on the test and I kept getting them knocked off. That is coming from a testing background, that happens a lot. And I don't think the state realizes what's going to happen because it's not a normal testing year. And so there could be some so I can't promise you're not going to hear, well, I can't get on my test or I can't get kicked off. But I'm going to make sure before I apply for this that our network can handle entire classes. And that's the way that testing has it set up. Entire classes at one time at the middle school going on through NC test and at least taking the tutorial.
I just know that when there's student frustration, they get kind of,
Yeah.
especially at that age group, they get real upset if things don't work. I want to make sure that's not happening on our end.
Yeah, you're right, Ms. Papa. Now, I'm very worried. I'm only worried on the state end because of past experiences. And usually they'll have some problems at some juncture and they'll get them worked out. But hopefully they've taken into account. We're going to use our Fridays. We're going to keep Fridays. We're not going to make it 5 days a week. So teachers will still have the Fridays, but that's the times we'll allow the remote kids to come in. The Fridays and after school and things like that.
And that was a second part of it. And the third, and this is more just a comment, can we not use like auditoriums and gyms and stuff for testing instead of just classrooms?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. And I told, and I don't leave it to the schools, but I told the schools and also West Stanley, I said, you can combine 2 classes and put them and spread them out in the auditorium and use it for testing as well. Now, one thing we'd have to do is Mr. Britt would have to go in kind of beef up the, number of access points in there. Because the normal access point we were testing, probably 40, would you say, is kind of.
40, give or take.
Yeah, 40 to 50, you don't want to exceed that number. So, we would have to do some adjustments, but he and I have been in conversation, and especially looking at some of the schools, and what we would need to do to kind of bolster the, the access points to those schools. But good comment, good questions.
I may be playing devil's advocate. Okay. So I have some concerns. I have some concerns if I were the classroom teacher. And all of a sudden, all my students are back together. And I taught middle school. I know middle school kids. That's the potential to me for chaos. Okay, can you?
I don't necessarily see that potential, because usually the testing environment is much different than a normal classroom environment. For being a teacher and being an administrator, it's usually, it's structured. They know it's a test. They come in and, and I know that teachers have been testing full classrooms of students for years, ever since it's come up. And, as we go years go on, I know it's old country saying, when the sap starts rising, that's when the kids start acting crazy. And it's this time of year when it's spring and all that, but we never really ever had in the past. And I know they're coming back together, they haven't been together well for the most part. They've been with their different groups, but that's not something we've really anticipated, because these kids have been together testing throughout their lives up until this year as whole classes. And a testing environment is a different environment. And even we know the environment coming in with these masks and things, they're just different environments. It seems to have the opposite effect, in my opinion, on our kids. Because I think we all keep saying, how socialization is so much different because they're spaced out, because we have masks on. I expect the testing environment to be subdued, as we've kind of seen classrooms have been subdued through the years. But, having said that, if we do have some students who don't act accordingly when testing, it's just easy. They're removed and they're sent home. And usually it only takes one.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay, I'm glad you did bring that up. We will not have problems. We don't have them anymore. We never really saw the benefit of it. Now, there will be people like stationed in the hallway to alleviate bathroom break issues and things like that, or if your kid gets sick or something. But as far as the classroom, we will not have problems.
Okay, I have a couple more concerns. And I guess I'm thinking about the students now. So you mentioned if the gym's going to be used, or the auditorium's going to be used, or other areas.
Yeah, I don't know if
We're
it's
taking
what
those
you
students out of their comfort classroom, where I want them to do the very best that they possibly can do on a test. Does that have an effect when you move them and you put these groups together? And okay, that's just a concern.
I will say right now, we have not recommended that. It's not a recommendation saying you got to use that, but we have said it's an option if you need to use it. I don't know how much it will be used and to what frequency it will be used at this juncture. But, there's always, and I've heard you say, Martin, you have to take them out of the environment, put them in a different environment, and they test, they may test differently and things like that. I don't know the research behind that per se. I'd be glad to look it up. But as of right now, that's kind of the last resort. But the only conversation we've had thus far was the possibility of maybe using the gymnasium as a testing environment. But again, that is not the test plans I've seen thus far. That is not on the test plan. I'm not saying it couldn't be, but
But it might have to be, especially maybe a West Stanley.
we think we have to bring West Stanley. We walked through it the other day, and without using the gym, we looked at all the classrooms. Of course, it's a classroom for all the kids. The main thing we were looking at was, do we have a number of little rooms and areas for the kids with accommodations and things? So that's what you got to look at. And we're wondering, are we going to have to use a classroom to supplant it? It would have to, move that class or classes to have those classrooms for those kids. Right now, they're saying they can make it work. That's what I was told when I talked to the assistant principal, who is the testing coordinator and the principal. Right now, they said they haven't worked, they weren't talking about doing anything with the gym, but it is a possibility if it were needed.
Okay, and I have a concern with the spacing, like, I mean, we're still trying to use the spacing with 3 feet, correct?
They're gonna be using the same spacing as the 5th graders as well.
And what is that spacing?
Is the best, and 3 feet is the recommendation, and we try to space the best.
So there's really not gonna be a whole lot of space when you bring all those kids back together.
It'll be the same spacing, like I said, it's in the 5th grade classroom. I can try to, look at what, I think they do a pretty good job of spacing them out. When I was in the school the other day in the hallway, they still space them down the hallway. I know one, and I'll bring it up, I know one issue too, and in West is gonna be with bathrooms, because there's only 2 for some reason. So they're gonna have to run the bathroom cycles a little more frequently. But they have them lined down the hallway, spaced out well. They do, Miss Honeycutt and her crew do a very good job. And then when they return to the classroom, they have the desks spaced out as well as they can. My daughter's in one of the 5th grade classrooms. And so, when I looked at her, I thought they did a pretty good job spacing. It's not 6. I would say it's much closer to 3.
What about lunches? I know they serve lunches in the classroom now. We're gonna be bringing all those lunches to now full classes of kids?
We just had this conversation yesterday, so we're still looking at the logistics of lunch and other things.
Okay. And finally, I told you, I was feeling questions. I don't want an outbreak because we're doing this. We've been so careful all along to stay in our A and B rotation. I don't want all of a sudden to have a COVID outbreak. That's the concern that I have, bringing them all back together.
All I can say is that the 5th grade has been all back together in all the schools, and we haven't seen that yet evidence for an outbreak this season.
But we're talking 6th, 7th, 8th grade now, bringing them all
That's
back.
good.
So,
We're still gonna keep them separated, they're not letting them mingle or anything like that. And, the A day and B days that are usually, in the class, they're gonna be in class that day all together, for a couple days.
how many days is this now exactly? How many days for testing that they're all together?
This will be 2 weeks. Right now, it's looking about 8 days. We've got an extended, but we've got an actual extended test where we're applying, for an extended testing window. But it'll be 8 days that they will be together, Monday through Thursday, both weeks. Now, and I can't tell a kid, I'll say this, some effects you gotta look at too. Because I personally can't tell a kid not to come to school and never would. But some of these kids, when they take a test,
Right.
so we won't see them, and that'll bring the numbers down. The 5th grade people, they'll test out first. And, the only 2, we got 4 graders, the only 2 that aren't gonna take those 2 tests, of course, we do 5th grade, they have to take the science, and the 8th grade, they have to take the science. So, that's just something to take into considerations. But there will be a few days, that, they're gonna all be together taking the test.
What about transportation? Are they all now going to be together like us?
Well, we have to put out how many need the transportation to start with, but, right now, we use our restrictions on the bus, it's just the same, so we usually get, if you want to speak to that anytime.
To accommodate those 2 weeks, obviously we can't add more buses and we have the drivers to operate if we could. But we'll have to loosen the restrictions, as far as spacing for the bus. We don't know what that will look like to a large degree, and we'll minimize it as much as we can. But, we will, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, the spacing will change.
So they won't be probably 3 feet apart.
That's, we could get 3 feet apart, hardly with restrictions in place, that was tough as it is. Now, they'll be setting, we're not gonna pack it as tight as we can get it, but will it be 2 to a seat?
Yeah. We have some now that are 2 to a seat, K-5. Not a lot, but some, we'll reduce those restrictions. There'll be a lot of at least 2 to a seat.
And how are we gonna ascertain how many kids are gonna require transportation during that 8-day period? Is there, we get a survey?
We'll set up a survey or something. We'll survey the parents and who needs, and it'll be a survey to the extent of, I need your name and address and all this, because they'll have to set up and stop everything, yeah. So what essentially, I don't see a bunch of new kids asking for it, but he'll have to take his AD and BA stops and kind of put
That's
together.
what we'll start with is our A-Day, B-Day stops and look at that and see what that's gonna look like on any given bus. And again, like we did with the K-5, we can shift a few students one way or the other. Buses kind of are close enough in proximity sometimes. We can take some students off one bus and put them on the bus. Here it is.
That's gonna affect all students' bus route times, is that right? It would
Excuse me?
change their stop times and
It would change our stop times during that week.
wondering how many of them gonna be affected. It seems like it's gonna be all of them are combined by routes.
We'll limit the confusion as much as we can. And, like I say, space as well as we can. But it's gonna be a bit of a challenge, guys, the number of buses.
So Dr. Biz, after all these questions I've asked, and thank you for answering everything. What are other alternatives? Are there any other alternatives than this, than to bring everybody back?
So we have asked for an extended testing window, but that would possibly mean if that was granted, we would start testing the first week of May. And then, to test through the whole month of May, you're going to lose that instructional time with the students, which is why the state has always traditionally set the testing window the last 5 days for high school, the last 10 for 3-8. So to keep it within that 10-day window, we simply can't do that on an A-B cohort rotation without extending past the 10 days. So the first level is we're going to see if we can extend the testing window outside the 10 days. But if not, then we're going to have to figure out a way to squeeze it into 10 days, which is why our first thought was combine the A and B group. To maybe put your minds at ease a bit, just remember that our middle schools are our newest schools. And so their classrooms are larger, their hallways are wider, they have taller ceilings. So in terms of space and area, they are the larger spaces for our students. So there is a potential for them to be more spread out in our middle school settings. I know, for example, South Stanley Middle School has many empty rooms. So in terms of bringing those students back, A and B cohort together, there are rooms where we can maintain the space. West Stanley is a concern. I too have gone out there and walked their campus recently, in fact, just earlier today. The 6 mobile units would be available for use to spread students out. Their media center is also available, and it has, it's a very comfortable setting. I think that students are familiar with it, and I would even advocate, with their testing coordinator to say, place your 8th graders in the media center. They've known that facility longest. So, making sure that they don't just dump a 5th grader into a room that he or she's never been in. So there are just some guidelines that we can put out to the schools to make sure that that testing environment is as conducive to that process as it can possibly be.
Let me give you some brass tacks on this. Maybe this will make a lot more sense. All right, so I'm really not worried about high school. High school testing, if I'm not testing, it'll work perfectly fine, even though it's only 5 days. And of course, I'm not worried about elementary officers, because they're kind of tests just like all this. If I go and do the testing now with the AV schedule like it is, I'm essentially cutting my window in half. Because I can only test half kids at one time, right? I need to test as many kids as I need to test, because I need my baseline to look as accurate as it should, because it's we are all going to be compared with the next year. So I need to get these kids tested so I can start bringing all the other kids. And I'm going to really fight, trying to get these virtual kids in. And so I need to get the 6 to 8 tested now. And so I can start focused on bringing these other kids in. If I split it A and B, it's going to take me the whole testing window to test just the kids that are coming to school. So I got to get them tested so I can concentrate on getting as many people tested as possible. And we went back and forth on it. I first was not a proponent of it, but the more and more we talk, I don't see a different way to do it. Because I'm like you, I'm worried about packing a bunch of kids in, but the state says we can do it. There's an avenue to do it. I'm looking at the 5th grade numbers. I've not seen an uptick, and they're going to be space in the classroom just like the 5th grade. I haven't seen an uptick because of that. And so looking at where we are and using the 5th grade as an experiment, really using an experiment too when it comes to, like you said, looking at our infrastructure to make sure it happens. If we get down the road and either this doesn't look feasible or it looks shaky or it doesn't look nasty, I'm not saying I'm gonna go tomorrow and apply for it. I'm gonna make sure I have all the, and I'll report back to the chairman, this is what I have, this is what I have. I move forward with this, but unless we want to call a special call board meeting, we will have another board meeting before I have to make this decision. So that's what we're doing.
Well, what about those kids that have been virtual all along, who I feel like parents have wanted to keep them away from the crowds and protecting them from the COVID exposure? Are we going to be bringing those kids back into?
We're gonna give them the option of coming after school or on Fridays.
Okay.
But right now, the state has not put out anything that waives the kids from testing. Right now, they are all expected to test whether virtual or whatever plan your school system is in. So not only do I have to make available, but we need to know where our kids are too. I need the kids to come test for a majority of reasons. We need to have a correct baseline of where we are as a district. I need to know where these individual children are. And I'm not saying this test is perfect or a test at all, but it is a test that it not only, we can use it to show growth, but it shows the mastery of what the state says they should know. And so I needed to test results. And what I'm worried about is I'm worried about low turnout amongst the virtual kids. And I know that we're really going to have to try to get those kids in. I really need to get these kids tested for. And I have to trust my people too. I have to trust the testing and accountability in saying, this is what's best for testing. This is what's going to go best. And they give me good solid reasons why.
Well, I mean, I like the fact that you're going to offer them Fridays to come in, and it looks like they could truly be spread out in various.
Yeah, I don't see a situation where we can't really spread them out pretty good on Fridays. And even after school too, when the kids are left. So they're going to have a bunch of options within there to come test. So I'm hoping that their weariness to be around other kids isn't an issue during the testing cycle.
I think if we could just reassure them about the sanitation that's been done, after school and, Fridays. Okay, thank you.
When you say they're gonna test on Fridays, does that mean that the children that are virtual won't have instruction, the teacher will be testing?
Once we go to testing, we're pretty much done with instruction. That's good questions.
Any questions?
And right now, I'm asking for the option to do it. I'm not saying I'm going to do more. Just like Mr. Anthony had, there's some things we're still looking at logistically that if it just looks like a mess, I'll report back to the board and say, I did not go to May. I'll say I did not go through with it because this, and this. But if it's plausible and, it can be done without, again, major distractions or students not getting services they should get, unless that I'm informed differently from testing accountability, probably move forward with it. But I need to be able to do such.
So the motion here is that the superintendent be given authority to look into this, determine what it's going to look like. Is that correct?
And I will also need the authority to apply for Plan A from this,
You have the authority to apply for Plan A for grade levels
6 through 8.
6 through 8.
For the
For the
test.
test, for the test.
Test. Okay. Right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Curriculum and instruction, Dr. Amy Blake Lewis.
I have this here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Personnel, administration, student services, Ms. Calvin.
a copy of the personnel agenda placed at your place, at your spot. Additions were made in red. Section 1 is for information and section 2 is for action.
Can I ask something? We are not allowed to pull a section in section 1 only for closed session.
Discussion. Full discussion.
Section 1 doesn't require action, but certainly it would be up for discussion.
I have a question
Which
on
section?
section D.
Can you realize section D is up for discussion? That's,
But can I, when we're in closed session, may I ask?
sir, absolutely. So we're going to pull section 1, D, for further discussion, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve section 2 of the personnel agenda as it is presented.
May we approve section 2?
Motion by Ms. Gibson to approve section 2. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Watson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Section 2 is approved, and we will discuss further section 1.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Calvin. Auxiliary services, Mr. Dunn.
Good evening, everyone. I think I'll be loud enough throughout holding this in my hand. In your packets, you have the financial statement as where Stanley County Schools stands through March the 31st of 2021. The front sheet is sort of synopsis, breakdown based on our budget resolution, based on the different areas within each fund of 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, and 9,000. Just to sort of give you some heads up, when I look at a budget, financial statement presentation, I look at, okay, where do we stand based on quarters? And I look at half of the year, are we standing within 50% of our budget? 3/4 of the year, are we within 75%? If you look at the total on page 1 of your report, you'll see that we're standing roughly about, we've spent 73.96% of our total budget at this point in time. So with it being 3/4 through the year, we're sort of, within my projection, we're sort of standing pretty good. If you wanted to break it down by fund, you'll see that in Fund 1, which is state funds, you'll see we're at roughly about 77.85%. At this point in time, we only have 2 more months of teachers' pay left for this school year for 10-month staff, and then, of course, 3 months remaining in the year. So we should be pretty much on target there with our state funds. Local, you'll see we're standing at 67.9% of our total budget. So we're standing real good with local funds. Fund 3, you'll see we're at 61.7%. But there is a pile of money there for COVID funds that we're actually will be carrying over into the next school year. That will be for initiatives that we've got in place for next school year. So that's why we've sort of not spent as much there that we would not have spent at this point in time. Capital outlay, which is Fund 4, you'll see we spent roughly about 83.7% of our total budget in capital outlay at this point. Roughly around this time of year, you're sort of leveling off with what kind of capital projects you've got and looking at what we want to spend for next year in capital projects. And I know that Todd has done great with our budget that we've had this year for capital outlay. Just to sort of give you an idea, last year, sitting at this time, we had a lot more capital outlay funds because of the quarter-cent sales tax and how the county commission gave us the quarter-cent sales tax in 1920, where this year we're limited that in actual quarter-cent sales tax. So that plays a role in where we stand with our capital outlay budget for this year. Fund 5, Child Nutrition Services, you'll see we're roughly at 63.18% of our budget. Just to give you some idea, the last couple of months with Child Nutrition, February and March, we have exceeded $500,000 in our reimbursement request from the federal government and from the state through USDA. So we have really done great with increasing our revenue stream there with the initiatives that y'all put in place for serving the students of Stanley County Schools through the weekend. So that's been a great move there on our part. And of course, in Fund 8, we're standing at roughly about 51% of our total budget in Fund 8 that we've spent at this point in time. So at this time, the pages follow that, and I know yours is sort of back and front. That's sort of the breakdowns with the different funding areas within each one of those funds. But just to cover, based on the budget resolution, page 1 keeps us in line with our budget resolution. Any questions concerning the financial statement?
Jody, thank you for doing this, and keeping us apprised of where we stand, especially in each of the funds, and making sure that we are indeed on track where we ought to be. I know that it's been kind of convoluted with some of these COVID funds coming in and how you can spend them and where you can spend them and that kind of thing. And I know even that changes sometimes week to week. But nonetheless, you've done an excellent job and keeping us on track. I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you. Some other points I'd also like to make for financial purposes. Our audit report had actually some salary issues that was found by the auditors for the previous school year. I just want to let you know at this point in time through March, we have no salary exceptions from the state level. So that's a great thing. We're at actually 0. I commend what we've done in personnel, what we're doing in finance and payroll side. Ms. Kimry is doing an awesome job making sure she stays on target with what I've taught her at this point. We're keeping that down, and personnel is doing great with making sure we keep our staff licensed where they need to be and all that kind of stuff. So we're doing great. I commend having a 0 salary exceptions as of March of 2021. That's awesome. So I do want to let you know that. Also, we received our sales tax refund from the school year 1920 back in January. And so that has been reallocated. That was $117,000. That's been reallocated out and actually refunded back into areas that we received the sales tax refund from. Anything that we receive sales tax from state actually goes into the technology fund. And anything from federal government that we pay out of the federal government funds, we had to put it back to those federal programs. So that's all been done. And of course, Child Nutrition has received their portion of the sales tax refund. So I want to let you know that. And as well, the 4 areas that DPI audit every month on behalf of the school systems, which is classroom teachers, principals, and administration, school building administration, CTE, and instructional support, we're on good target there for the remainder of this school year. So there should not be any overages in those 4 areas as well at this point in time. So that's pretty much where we stand financially.
It's good to know also that the funds that need to be replaced are being put back, and that we're able to do that, and that everything is zeroed out there. So that's our. Thank you very much again, and again, commendations should go to all those other folks who are working with you to keep that in place.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Ryan, we have any public comments? Danny, I guess I'm sorry. Pardon me.
Okay.
Right, with
The next item, I guess, the Baden Elementary School auditorium roof renovation. You'll see you got your bid tabulation sheet there in front of you. The lowest bid was with WeatherGuard at $129,584 with a 6,700 area coverage. So that's what we're recommending for the roof construction at Baden Elementary.
So that's the bid you're recommending for roof repair.
Yes, sir.
How do they do it so much cheaper than the others? I mean, is the quality as good?
They have already done work, they have done work for me in the past, and they don't. I'm like you, I'm amazed sometimes at the difference. But yes, they're a quality company, new quality.
That's a pretty big difference.
Is there a reason that the area is so much different from one to the other?
They're responsible, I have an engineer that looks out the bid, but each crew is responsible for measuring their own measurements. And every roof I've ever done, everybody has a different measurement. Some of them will come out and actually measure the roof, some of them will do it from Google Earth. But the measurements are always different. I can't explain it, it's always different.
Is this kind of like the number on the acres? That's a big difference.
Every- And they're not responsible, it's clear in the document, they're responsible, for their measurement, and,
I'm sure it's got to be the evidence that doing the measurement, whether it's actually coming out and doing it in person versus with the public.
yeah,
Its recommendation is, from Mr. Dudley that we, approve weather guard at a price of $129,584, for the auditorium roof renovation at Dayton Elementary. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion by Ms. Gibson, do I have a second? Second by Ms. Watson, is there any further discussion? And we have these funds already allocated, correct, Mr.? Okay.
we have funds, we have funds available.
Funds are right, okay, very good. All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. And that motion carries. All right, go ahead.
Okay, and the next thing on your agenda would be our driver's education services, request for proposal that, was sent out. I did, request for proposal for 24 vendors, mailed out, RFP, 24 vendors on March the 8th, to actually have a bid for proposal, submitted to Stanley County Schools to my attention by 4 o'clock on March the 31st of 2021. Of those 24, we did have one to return undeliverable. And we had 4 bid proposals brought to me by the deadline. We did an advertisement in the Standard News and Associated Press on the 19th and the 22nd of March. Under the 4 bids that you see the bid sheet in front of you, there was 2 of them that has come in under the allotment from NCDPI and the actual $65 that we charge for each student. Those are NC Driving School and Metrolina Driving Academy. Based on references that I did for the 4 bids that came in, NC Driving School has 41 systems throughout the state that they do services for. Jordan Driving School serves 8 school systems in North Carolina. Metrolina Driving Academy serves 4 high schools, which are charter schools, and Watson Wheels has not indicated anything at this point before I left the office, if they have any customers within a NC school system. Based on the recommendation that I would suggest for Stanley County Schools, I would recommend that we use NC Driving School. I know that it's at $220 per student, but with the services they render throughout the state, to 41 school systems, and with prior experience that I've had with them of almost 20 plus years, I think they would do great for the school system of Stanley County. Any questions or concerns with that?
We had a conversation too, I know the one is lower, but they've never done a school system on small charter schools. And we were very concerned that if we were to choose them, they were coming a bit off a little more than they can chew, the experience our kids might have, and we didn't want to take that chance.
I've shared my concerns already with you folks. So,
Yeah,
my problem though is, not specifically hitting anybody in particular. The car drive, I passed one coming up there to see, the car drives up, says Stanley County Schools next to the driver's head. The way we interact, and vendors interact with our student population and parent population, that is our brand. Okay? If Stanley County Schools has a brand, we're a school system, but we have a brand, and it's been dinged right and left by poor decisions from our county commissioner, from our state leadership. And I'm just saying, based on what I've seen, that's what precipitated my suggestion. Given what I didn't have the background we haven't had about the saturation, I'm going to make one of these y'all say. At the same time, I think we need to make that an expectation. Anybody that puts anything with our name on it, they have an obligation to interact with parents and students respectfully and professionally.
and I was saying,
Yeah, I'm done. I'm just, pontificating and saying that's where the concern comes.
I just want to
Sure,
share.
I buy a car or something. We're about to replace mom's SUV at 16 years old. I'll spend 6 months before I spend $1 because I want ROI and I want customer service. That was again, we are one body and I'm fine.
No, you made a good point, and after I received that, I went back and tried to do some research. Now, we do have, like I said, he said he had experience, but we did get recommendations from other school systems in the district, or excuse me, in the state for that matter. And I went back and investigated, and I'm glad I tried to find, all the ratings and stuff for it. What I found, and you may have found something different, I found a Facebook page, and it had a 3.3 out of something, but it was only 16 reviews. And I,
39, 1.9, 23 reviews throughout the Yelp and Facebook. Every one of those was, the student contacted this company and got blown off. Was the student leaving, they get angry, they go, Mama, I got blown off. Well, Mama contacts the company, they're saying the same thing, they're not interested. They're not communicating. My concern is with anything that says Stanley County Schools, we have to rebrand positive images and stuff. So you're absolutely right. I'm talking off the top of my head here, but
no.
I'm fine with it because for one thing, we know what saturation across the state, we know what we're doing. I think that we need to make that an expectation to anybody that puts our name on it.
Yes, sir.
It says Stanley County School, so. One more thing, when I was at South Bend, we had issues with the previous driving day. Our principal spends too much time and stuff that he's putting out fires that he or she cannot control. So that was my whole point. I'm done pontificating. I didn't disrespect you or anybody else.
We didn't disrespect it, y'all. I totally hear you, and I agree 100% that any product we put out, I mean, it used to be public schools the only game, and it's not the only game. We have to have good customer service, and we have to take care of our parents and our students. So if for some reason, we do get this company in, and they're not doing what they should do, we can put it out more.
We're board one, so I don't know what
And just to sort of elaborate what Dr. Dennis said, this is a one-year contract. In the request for proposal, it was only a 2-year add-on if it was at y'all's discretion. So if something happens in that first year and it's not pleasing to the board, we can't go back out to bids on that.
And I just want to clarify, our cost to the parent or student isn't changing.
No, but I would say this though, I do want to say this, that in the past, we have so much money we're getting from the state, and the state says we can charge so much. So that does not change at all. What is going to change is the savings to the school district. So we used to have to buy cars, we used to have to subsidize a lot of extra money out of our local expense from the previous driving school. With this option right here, we will save money because no more money comes out of current expense for drivers anymore.
Mr. Dudley, what experience have you had with them?
NC Driving School came on when I was working at Columbus County. We brought NC Driving School on in the late 80s. Me and Amy was talking earlier, I think it was either 88 or 89, we brought them on. And when I left there in 2018, they were still servicing our schools. And we actually, when they came on, we were, at that point in time, that was before the state said we could charge any fees to parents. When the state allowed us to start charging for fee, the $35 when it started, our board only decided that we would charge $20. So we asked NC Driving School, could they collect that fee on our behalf so we would not have to have that. They worked very smooth to collect that fee for us. We did not have to run that through our schools. They actually showed the $20 credit on our invoices that we got monthly. I've always had worked very good with them from the finance officer's perspective. They bill us monthly, we remit the payment. I never had a hounding of, okay, I want my money today, I give you the invoice today. So pretty much, that's all I have when it comes to working with them from the financial perspective.
Any other questions? All minds clear. Okay. Recommendation from Chief Financial Officer is to accept the contract, let a contract with North Carolina Driving School to begin our driver's education program beginning
July 1.
July 1.
Yes, sir.
July 1, for a period of 1 year. Correct. Entertain a motion.
Except the North Carolina Driving School.
Okay, motion by Ms. Gibbs, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Watson, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And that motion carries. So that will be starting July 1, correct? Now, one other question I did have, you mentioned that they collected the $20 on a half year previous system. Are they going to collect the fees for us as well?
We can do that as well. We can do that as well with them. And that's what I would, I notify them that they have received the bid, that would be my recommendation, that they work the same way of collecting the $65 charge on our behalf and showing us the credit, for each child when they invoice us.
So they'll handle that then, so that's part of your recommendation to them, we, they take care of that.
Yes, sir.
Another question, is the previous company gonna finish up the year?
Yes, they will be here.
I understand. What point for the board, the previous company has decided to exercise their 30-day notice to end their contract, and their contract begins May 19th. So there will be a little bit of lag between May 19th and July 1st, for which we'll make sure that's advertised well.
So they gave a 60-day notice,
They gave us their 30-day per contract. They gave
30 or
us
60?
30.
30 day.
Yes, sir. On March the 19th, we received a notice for termination of the contract, which does not have to be agreed upon by the parties.
That's 60 days.
Oh, excuse me, 60 days, I'm sorry. 60-day notice on March the 19th.
It's just like
You're exactly right. I'm somewhere else. We got a 60-day notice on March 19th for termination, so the contract will terminate on May the 19th. And it will be about a month and a half, I think, before July 1st. I did have Mr. Gunny call the individual driving schools to ask if there was a possibility of starting earlier. And essentially, with the options that we were looking at, those options could not start until July 1st.
So there'll be a lag of about 6 weeks in there that
Yes, sir.
the kids that are requiring that early, during that 6 week period of time, will be put first.
Yeah, they won't come out of queue or anything. They'll be based on where they are standing right now. They'll stay there until July 1st.
Okay, very good. Study, anything?
Okay, and then the add-on with the auditor contract, and I apologize, that I did not have all this on the agenda prior to tonight, but, it slipped my mind to actually have it approved because they actually want to come in May and start our interim field work, for this year. And so, the audit, contract that you have, I think that you have a copy in front of you. It's the same as what we paid this year, which would be the $33,000 for the annual contract, and then writing of the contract and submitting the report to the local government commission of $4,000. So that's do they have a copy of the audit contract?
They do not.
Okay, I apologize for that. The audit firm is Anderson Smith and White. That's the one we've used. Y'all have used them now for 3 years. This is actually be their 4th year. And the way I normally work with audit, I do the 3 to 5 window for bid proposals. So at the end of this, I will actually be doing bid proposals for audit services as well. But this is the 4th year. They will be, if y'all approve the contract tonight, they will be doing services for Stanley County Schools. And I only had worked with them partial of that, of the end of the 1920 year. And we had a very good standing with what I had worked with them for those 3 months. And then, of course, getting the audit done on timely and meeting the October 31st deadline that was required by local government commission, and then getting the audit report and stuff sent by December to y'all as a board. I feel that they did a very good job on that. With the circumstances of COVID, and then, of course, the transition of a finance officer. And so, but like I said, the actual contract amount is $33,000. And then, of course, writing up the financial report and submitting it to the local government commission is $4,000. So the total would be $37,000. And that's the same as it was for the 1920 school year. Any other questions concerning that?
Entertain a motion, recommendation of Chief Financial Officer that we accept the audit contract for Anderson Smith and White LLC to audit records for Stanley County Schools for the coming year.
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Graves, there's a second. Second by Ms. Gibson. Any further discussion or any discussion?
Mr. Chance, that would be for the current year we're in right now.
Current year,
All
right now.
in this current year, 2021.
2021, excuse me. Clarification, 2021 school year. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you for doing this, work zone company. All right, public comments, no. Superintendent comments, Dr. Dennis.
As you'll see, before you see the little ribbon and got a pen, I think we should have one of these. It is April is Autism Awareness Month. As it states on there, 1 in every 4 children have autism. There's a good chance all of us know someone who has a child with autism. Just want to keep that in mind. I do want to, this is just hot off the press. Found out today that at Stanfield, they were awarded a Go Outside grant for $13,337.81. Senator Carl Ford called Stanfield, and that money is for a greenhouse and tools to help grow plants. It's an issue to get kids outside. It's really, really neat. I'm very grateful of Senator Ford for calling itself. The next is, we had a meeting this morning with superintendents with the state superintendent Truitt about House Bill 82 and what all House Bill 82 is going to entail and what we're going to be planning in the next month. Actually, it's a very short turnaround. And we were hoping, there were some superintendents that were hoping for a lot of some leniency on some different things and the ability to maybe stretch out some of this, what's essentially the summer school deal. But there's not going to be any flexibility there. We will have to deliver at least 150 hours in 30 days of instruction over the summer. So we'll have to start sometime after school ends, and it'll have to be finished before school begins. There has to be a physical activity period, and it must be provided each instructional day. The physical activity period does not go toward 150 hours, nor does any transition time during classes, nor does any time spent feeding the children. 150 hours has to be all instructional time. There will also be, we have to provide, well, I'll just read it. For grades K-3, in-person instruction, reading and math, and science instruction must be added for grade 3. Integration of LEA's reading campus program, at least one enrichment activity with the LEA having discretion to type of enrichment activity must occur for K through 3. Grades 4 through 8, in-person instruction, reading, math, and science. At least one enrichment activity with the LEA having discretion of any type of enrichment activity, such as sports, music, or art. Grades 9 through 12, in-person instruction in in-course subjects. Access to modules and teacher support for credit recovery courses necessary to meet graduation requirements. And in-person instruction for an elective course. Transportation services have to be provided. We do have to provide child nutrition services. There must be time-bound instructional day for individual small group instruction for at-risk students. Volunteer participation by at-risk students with LEAs notifying parents of at-risk students about the students' eligibility program. In other words, this, even though we have these high-risk students, this cannot be used. I'm going to read something different, so something a little different. We're not supposed to use this for promotion. However, if a student is going to be retained, they can come to this voluntarily, and then we have to look at the retention again if we are truly going to retain them or let them pass the sports. We also have to have opportunities for other students if space is available. So if we have a student who doesn't meet the criteria to go to the summer school program and they want to go, if we have room, we have to take those students. And those are really. Oh, and we also can use, we're expected to use either our summer camp funds or our ESSA funds to pay for this. It's not to be paid for us, like tuition and stuff. So We use the ESSA funds, the percentage we give it to help students who are behind, and reading camp funds to be able to provide monies for this. I'm not going to, I'll send this out to you again. I got this condensed version from the Superintendent Association just a little while ago. But look at some other things. There are bonuses built in for teachers who have really good success in reading, teachers who are National Board certified, teachers who students do so well after, after the post-test, because we are going to, she was talking about already earlier, the screener. That's the screener we're going to have to use, it looks like, for our pre-test and post-test, because I've not heard anything about the state putting forward their own testing with this. So we're going to have to use our own testing to be able to ascertain what these kids have learned or what they do know in the mastery subject area. But there are some, we can use some money, it says in legislation, we're going to use some money for some bonuses. We can come out of ESSA money as well. And we can pretty much set what the pay for the teacher is going to be. It doesn't necessarily go off of what they're making now. And none of this is reported toward their retirement. I know there's one school system that's just paid by the hour, paying well. And so we're going to have to come up with what types of money we're going to pay the teachers. Because let's face it, you've been teaching this whole year. Now we're going to ask you to take 6 weeks out of your time and teach some more. So we'll have to make it attractive for the teachers. Now we do have some plans for if we're not able to get enough teachers by using ingenuity and we'll supply online teacher, virtual teacher with some TAs. But and we're also working on teacher burnout. So we're trying to look at set more than 6 straight weeks, possibly split into different smaller units. That way they'll have, we're doing just Monday through Thursday. That way they have so many days or so many weeks, and then they get a week or so off and so many weeks. Just to try to entice them. We're going to need teachers and we're going to need our best teachers because the students who are intended for the summer class, a lot of times way behind. And so that's just a real quick look at the legislation. Again, I'll send you a little condensed summary guide that I was just sent a little while ago. And you can ask any questions you need. So, you have any questions right now?
Can we not use retired teachers?
There is a stipulation, if you look at the total bill, there is a way, and tell me if I'm wrong, speaking, you read this earlier, there is a way to use them, especially since it doesn't go toward the retirement. We can just essentially pay them by the hour, and it just says you have to fit into these windows as far as when you retire.
You don't necessarily have to wait 6 months.
Yes, I think it's just, it was long. There was, yeah.
I saw that.
You don't have to wait long also, yes, we can use retired personnel. And we're hoping that we have retired personnel will take us up on it.
Are we using, are we going to be looking not only at their final grades, these students, their final grades for the year, are we looking at their end of grade tests?
Well, what we're going to do, that's a good question. Since we can't really use it for promotion, we're going to look at 2 things. We're going to look at the students' growth and how well the teacher was able to grow on, and we're going to look at where they are at the end, and that's going to determine what the educational plan for the child is going to be as it matriculates in the next grade level. The only thing we're really going to look closely at, what you're talking about, maybe would be some of these kids that are some of these students who were up for retention, and now they go through the program, and we can look at their initial pre-test and post-test, show where they are and where their mastery is. That would be something where we can say, well, it looks like you're showing that growth.
Is there an attendance thing like for students that in order for them to go through this, they have to attend so many of these days of the 6 week?
Nothing that the library said.
I mean, I'm asking that because of students who may be involved in this, but yet their family had already planned a vacation for.
Nothing I've read in here, since it's not tied to promotion, there's really nothing I've read in here about attendance. And I would think that if you had a student who was looking at retention and they only showed up for a couple times, of course, they're not going to be, they're going to be retained. But having said that, yeah, maybe they missed 1 week, but they're still looking at, they did real progress at the other 5 weeks they were there, they could possibly still be.
So how many students are we looking at?
That is a great question, because I was trying just to throw some round numbers together. And the only numbers I can give you right now, I don't know, because it's gonna be predicated on a lot of different things. I still need to get test scores back from these kids to see where they are. And I won't have that till May. But we did roundabout numbers, and all I know is we look at our reading camp numbers from the last time we did a reading camp, and those are kids that obviously didn't perform, as they should on the EOG for reading. That was about 300 kids that didn't make the reading camp. And then looking at high school numbers for credit recovery, that we're taking advantage of that, 15 a grade maybe. But to give you an accurate or any even round number, not left at this point, I can't, because we were really throwing numbers at the wall. I was just trying to figure out what kind of amount of monies I'll be looking at taking out of the ESSA monies to use for this for personnel, based on just some different per hour and per day types. I promise as soon as I find out, I'll reach that, but I probably won't even have those numbers by the next board.
But having that few students, it ought to be pretty intense, though, shouldn't it? I mean, you shouldn't have a lot of students
Yeah.
in the class, should you?
Yeah, it's really, and we talked about that as well. It's a lot of it's gonna come down. We gotta figure out, first of all, how many schools we're gonna use, because we're probably not gonna need all the schools. And, you wanna make it so that there's you want a smaller number, but you wanna make it so that it's a good number, because, you're paying these teachers, so you want them to have a decent workable level. And then once we get all that parsed out, first of all, who's gonna show up, and then to your question, at what frequency. I imagine the elementary will have much better attendance than as the kids get older. Yeah, I don't foresee, and that's just based on experience in normal school. That's kind of what we're looking at. Good question, I'll let you know. Or you can have a real.
I have a question for you that kind of goes along with this, but doesn't really. I've noticed, I've had some parents to ask me, I know they've got CTE camps and I've noticed that they're really filling up quickly. So I've had some parents to ask me, are there going to be any camps, summer camps for music, for art, for drama? And then also, it seems like there's not really anything much for like a first grader or a second grader, maybe even a third grader. They seem to be geared higher. So
We're really even some of these other teachers that may teach some other things, we're really looking at the small pool of teachers we're gonna have just to fill the summer camp.
okay,
And there are some CTE teachers in the higher grades I know we're not gonna need, because we only have to do the EOGs, and they're not gonna come teach elementary.
right.
And I understand that, and in a given year, I would love to give them more opportunities, but I need this well of teachers for this state mandate that's been signed into law. That's all I need. Good question.
Absolutely, too, does require an enrichment component. So while there is the academic focus for part of the day, there is also that requirement that we provide enrichment. So I can certainly envision us providing something along the lines of a music and dance and art for that enrichment component.
But it'll be the enrichment component for these. I don't have anything to celebrate. We were thinking about, and we were looking at maybe a STEAM camp and stuff for some kids, and looking at some different things. But a lot of it's going to be, do we have teachers?
Well, I just had some that I know have already signed up for the CTE camps that's offered, and they were just asking, can we have other camps, and especially even like young children.
And I know it's not a camp, but if they have a student who's doing well in school, we discussed this yesterday, they can come to this particular option. If there's room, we can put them in accelerated classes. They can start to, say they're moving into 5th grade. We can go ahead and start them off in 5th grade if they want to get a jump start. That's an option also.
Thank you.
If there's no more questions, the only other thing is, and I'm sure there is the meeting with the county commissioners Tuesday on the 20th. And we are going to have that at the regular meeting room. But we we're gonna have it laid out a different way. Our other option would be for the fell throughs. We're gonna have it,
Sorry.
we're gonna have it on the floor, we're gonna put the tables on the floor.
Okay.
And GMAC time.
I understand the commissioners have a presentation that they're going to make, is that correct?
I did ask, we did email and ask, the county manager to, just do a short presentation, kind of like what we gave them about budget and city budgets.
And we have an agenda we're working on as well.
That agenda should be galvanized like more. We already have a working agenda. We're just gonna have a couple more things. A lot of it based on some stuff that come out today that we need to be working. And that has to do with, we're gonna have some stuff based on the House Bill 82 and the S.
Sorry.
And the essence.
Yes.
That's too.
So what is the commissioner's part of the deal? Is it just information going to come from us, or are they going to give us some information?
I think it's both. There's a lot of stuff coming out right now about things that the school system has to do and monies the school system is getting. And I know, and I think if Mr. Chance and I had a discussion, I think it's pertinent they understand this. We have conversations around this because a lot of things with the COVID monies, school finance, and these bills are real complicated. And I want to make sure that everyone understands where we are with a lot of these issues and other issues we got, not just this, but other issues we got going on in the school system. So it's just a chance for the county commissioners and us to have a good discussion. And, even looking at ESSER money, ESSER money doesn't do anything for my capital outlay per se, or my, yeah, exactly. It doesn't really do anything for the current expense capital outlay. And just to have them understand, because these are documents that I'm sure they're available to the public, but they're not readily available. And, you got to look at this long page by page application that we have to go through just to apply for monies for mental health, to apply monies, to sanitize schools, to do this, that, and the other. And that's what a lot of, I think, our conversation is going to be. But also, we just, I don't know about the board, but in myself, I don't ever sit down and just read through the entire county budget. I read through our budgets. But I don't sit there and read through their budget, so I'd like them just to break it down for me and just kind of show me, the inner workings of the county budget. And was kind of why we asked, I asked Mr. Lucas if he just prepare some, just so we all know where everybody stands, where everybody comes from. Because I think there's some misconceptions.
Will any of the COVID money or all this special money that's already been allocated, will any of that be for construction or such of that? Is schools?
It has to be COVID construction. That's a good question. So really, could I buy a trailer if I was trying to social distance kids because of COVID? Yes, I could. Could I buy a trailer just because I need another trailer? No, I couldn't.
Or like change the school for the ventilation and all that. I mean, I'm sure.
Well,
we have
ventilation, we'll talk about that too, but ventilation, there is an item in there that we can buy stuff to upgrade our insulation, our ventilation, so that it would purify the air for, to get out of deckers. So, we're looking at that, we're looking at maybe putting ionization in, but as far as just replacing my ventilation because it's old, no. It all has to have a COVID context to it, or has to somehow look at improving student learning due to learning loss from the pandemic. And those are things we're going to talk about.
Any other questions for Dr. Dennis?
Thank you.
Board member comments. I'm going to start down here with Ms. Poplar.
Just wanted to, say that it is autism awareness month, and, just wanted to recognize those individuals that deal with autism, and that is a growing thing. Acceptance and, awareness is super important. I believe it was assistant principal this month. Was it assistant principal month this month?
Yes.
Yeah. So recognize those and, Congratulations to Stanfield on the Go Outside grant.
I'd like to just repeat the phrase for everybody, the teachers and parents and students and everybody that's put up with this COVID year, because it's been rough on everybody. And the COVID is decreasing, but there's gonna have to be work over the next several years to kind of get our students back up to par where they should be. So we all don't need to, we can't lose our focus, and we need to keep working hard, because it's gonna be hard to motivate our students so that they can get it called back up. And it's gonna take everybody. It's gonna take their families, it's gonna take the schools, it's gonna take the teachers, and we all have to keep doing it, because it's been a rough several years. It's kind of proud of our county, I'm proud of our counties, how well they've done this, because I think considering how the rest of the country and the state has done, we've done really well in Stanley County. We've still had a lot of loss of our students' knowledge, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as it is other places. So I just want to congratulate everybody for the work they've done, and just to encourage them to keep doing the same thing, because we're going to need it for a few more years.
I just echo what Ms. Coughlin and Dr. Ledler said. And for those of you out there, thank you for being here and for all that you do. Mr. Dudley, thank you. Ms. Craig, you're in wonderful reports. Dr. Randy Blake Woods, I really enjoyed our instructional committee meeting. I'm looking forward to another one. And thank you, all of you, Dr. Dennis, everyone. And I really, for our assistant principals, I really appreciate all that they do and look forward to them one day becoming administrative principal. I want to just say how much I appreciate our teachers and all of our staff in our schools, because I know that it has been, well, I can imagine how hard it has been. And I know that I hear, because I hear that it's they love going to school. And it's because of the teachers, so I just wanted to give a shout out. I appreciate it.
Ms. Watson?
I did tell what everybody's saying too also, but my thing is, these 4 months, that we've had now, Stanley County Schools is wonderful. I thank you, Mr. Dudley, for keeping us on track. And since Dr. Dennis has been here, it's been wonderful. I just think we need to look at how great this county is, and our students and our teachers, everybody that's involved, everyone that's in this system has done a wonderful job with everything. And I'm just thankful to be a Stanley County and on this board. Thank you.
Sorensen?
I'm just gonna make a couple of comments. The people that aren't here, they probably need to hear it anyway. Good friends contacted me and has 2 sons that are struggling. Got me thinking, this has been a year to forget. This pandemic has made it so complicated, so difficult. So I just want to shout out to our students that are struggling. There's a lot of them. We hear you and we care. And shout out to the parents. We have a targetization from the education standpoint. Our parents are dealing with the COVID implications as well. Some of them are struggling financially, some struggling with jobs. So we hear you and we care. We do. To our teachers who have become jugglers, that teaching online, in-line, plan A, plan B, remote all at the same time. Hearing and hear. Finally, for our administrators that are keeping all those juggling teachers from joining the circus and leaving our school system, we hear you and we care. wanted to share with those two children in particular, and anybody else that's struggling with schools, this is not ordinary times. We know what you're going through, but it's not time to quit. Coached wrestling for 10 years at South Bend, one of the best 10 years of my life. And like any program that has any success, we had a theme. And our theme is simple: never, ever, ever quit. Our kids that are struggling, don't quit. You keep fighting through. You have problems with your classwork, with your teachers. Go to your teachers, go to your schools. Parents, we know you're overwhelmed, but you keep those kids on track, because what's going to happen soon is COVID's not gone, but it's going away. We're going to get your youngins back on track. We're going to get everybody out that door with a diploma that deserves it and a worthy education. For all the people that are struggling, we get it. I get it particularly. We hear you and we care. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Grant?
I'll tell you what, that was fantastic. I wish I had had about 30 teachers just like Mr. Sorensen when I was in school. I would have applied myself more, or I don't think I would have had a choice. They would have forced me to do it. One thing I do want to do, we never really do it, and it's nobody's fault. We just don't really think about it and sort of take it for granted. But I do want to thank Albemarle and Stanley County for providing law enforcement to us every time we have a meeting. We appreciate you guys, men and women, so much. If there's a tougher job than teaching, it might just be law enforcement. So you're appreciated by the community, so don't forget that. I know it's tough. You guys have we get bad press. It's even tougher for law enforcement. We get it, so we appreciate you. I say this every time we have a meeting. I am so impressed. I'm so impressed. I know the rest of the school members are. First of all, I think we need to lock everybody down. No retirements. You can't leave Stanley County if you work for Stanley County Schools. We are so fortunate because it has been a crazy year, but one thing that hasn't been crazy is the school system has been so, now I know you guys are working hard and it's probably, a little bit chaotic inside the central office and out of the schools. But no one sees it, and that is a great sign of an excellent organization, a well-run organization where everybody, they always say, don't let them see you sweat. We never see you guys sweating, and we know you are, and we appreciate you. Mr. Dudney and his reports are fantastic, and the curriculum reports with everyone. It's just, I'm amazed that we've been so fortunate with the people that we have in the Stanley County Schools. We appreciate you. And I love Mr. Dudney because he even promoted our local print media outlet to Stanley News and Associated Press tonight. So, how good is that? Once a meeting, he throws one of those out. I just had to call him out tonight. That was good. One of the interesting things is I'm curious to see how the state is going to handle things moving forward. I've been critical of the state many times for a whole host of reasons. And Dr. Leffler has pointed this out more often, more recently. There needs to be a plan to deal with these kids and closing those gaps, because when I hear the state say, well, you have to do summer school and the kids have to test, and it's like, now maybe there's more flexibility than I see, but it just seems to me that there's selective flexibility, and they have a responsibility to provide all of the school systems. This isn't a free-for-all. I know the Superintendent's Association, the School Board Association, they're doing their best to try to standardize policies and procedures to help all the school systems. I just don't see a lot of that happening at the state level. I don't hear a lot of talk about it. But we are going to have to, as a state, come together to really put in place some serious programs to help the kids that have gotten stuck in this COVID pandemic. So like the rest of the board members and the rest of the members of the Stanley County Schools, we'll just have to wait and see. I hope they're up to the occasion because the students are counting on them very much. But I thought it was interesting just on the testing where the state can make accommodations when they want to. And what's interesting about that is they don't really have any other choice. And like the school capacities, the school capacity issue that we're gonna have to face in the coming months and years, we have no other alternative too. And so it's interesting when it's a one-way street. The state can make exceptions. We cannot raise funds as a school board. The county can, the state can. We have to deal with a lot of the fallout, from the decisions made at the state and the local level. But the good news is we have an awesome team to deal with all the stuff that we do have to confront. So I'm very thankful for that, and I appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, can I say one thing before we conclude? I just want to piggyback, and I would be remiss if I didn't say it, and I just have to say it. These people do work extremely hard behind the scenes. And I'm talking about the school level, at the central office level, out in transportation and maintenance. I see them all the time. They don't work regular hours. I see these people working late, coming in early, doing whatever they have to do to get the job done. And it's a hard job. And I can attest to the way these people have performed, that I don't think we would be in the situation we are now without their hard work. And I just really appreciate that and want to go further. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion that the board go back into closed session for personnel matters only under General Statute 143-318-11A6.
I make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Graves, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Watson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.